the risk of your high blood pressure. Sedentary lifestyle, again, if you are sedentary, then again your heart rate and everything that'll slightly slow down, and then again the heart has to pump harder to again push the blood in the arteries. Okay. Tobacco usage, if you are a tobacco user, what happens? There are certain chemicals present like your nicotine and other chemicals which damages the lining of your arterial walls, right? Which again leads to your narrowing of your arteries and further leads to your high blood pressure condition. Okay. If you're having too much of alcohol, okay, because generally you must have heard also that for your heart health, you should be having some amount of alcohol in the form of red wine. It is good, but I'm talking about too much of alcohol. It definitely puts a negative impact on your heart health, and if your heart is compromised, definitely the contraction and relaxation process will compromise, and it will definitely start affecting your blood pressure as well. Okay. Now, if your food is very rich in sodium, right, that also increases your blood pressure, because when you're having a high salty food, what happens? It increases the fluid retention in the body. And when the fluid retention is increasing, what happens? The blood volume also increases. So if the blood volume increases, so automatically it will start putting pressure on the walls of your artery, leading to again a high blood pressure condition. The same thing happens if you're having a very low potassium food. If you're having a low potassium food, what happens? It actually increases the absorption of sodium from your kidney, right? So when the sodium level is increasing again, so again the whole process starts. It increases the fluid retention, it increases the blood volume and extra pressure on your walls, arterial walls. And definitely stress. We all are aware that when you're stressed, your cortisol hormone has a vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction, that means it actually constricts, it actually squeezes the blood vessels. So imagine the blood is flowing and you're pressing the pipe from the above, then automatically the pressure will be higher on your blood vessels. Okay. So that way, these are few risk factors. Along with that, certain hormonal conditions, certain chronic medical conditions, pregnancy and all, that these also can become like phasic risk factors for the high blood pressure. Okay. Now, Joel, request you to share the video. So I have a video where you will slightly understand that what happens internally, because it is very difficult to make every one of you to understand that what is happening inside our blood vessels, right? So I have a video for that.
If you lined up all the blood vessels in your body, they'd be 95,000 kilometers long. And every day, they carry the equivalent of over 7,500 liters of blood, though that's actually the same 4 or 5 liters recycled over and over, delivering oxygen and precious nutrients like glucose and amino acids to the body's tissues. All that blood exerts a force on the muscular walls of the blood vessels. That force is called blood pressure, and it rises and falls with the phases of the heartbeat. It's highest during systole, when the heart contracts to force blood through the arteries. This is your systolic blood pressure. When the heart is at rest between beats, blood pressure falls to its lowest value, the diastolic pressure. A typical healthy individual produces a systolic pressure between 90 and 120 millimeters of mercury, and diastolic pressure between 60 and 80. Taken together, a normal reading is a bit less than 120 over 80. The blood traverses the landscape of the body through the pipes of the circulatory system. In any plumbing system, several things can increase the force on the walls of the pipes: the properties of the fluid, extra fluid, or narrower pipes. So if the blood thickens, a higher pressure is needed to push it, so the heart will pump harder. A high salt diet will lead to a similar result. The salt promotes water retention, and the extra fluid increases the blood volume and blood pressure. And stress, like the fight or flight response, releases hormones like epinephrine, and norepinephrine that constrict key vessels, increasing the resistance to flow and raising the pressure upstream. Blood vessels can usually handle these fluctuations easily. Elastic fibers embedded in their walls make them resilient. But if your blood pressure regularly rises above about 140/90, what we call hypertension, and stays there, it can cause serious problems. That's because the extra strain on the arterial wall can produce small tears. When the injured tissue swells up, substances that respond to the inflammation, like white blood cells, collect around the tears. Fat and cholesterol floating in the blood latch on too, eventually building up to form a plaque that stiffens and thickens the inner arterial wall. This condition is called atherosclerosis, and it can have dangerous consequences. If the plaque ruptures, a blood clot forms on top of the tear, clogging the already narrowed pipe. If the clot is big enough, it can completely block the flow of oxygen and nutrients to cells downstream. In vessels that feed the heart, that will cause a heart attack when oxygen-deprived cardiac muscle cells start to die. If the clot cuts off blood flow to the brain, it causes a stroke. Dangerously clogged blood vessels can be widened by a procedure called an angioplasty. There, doctors thread a wire through the vessel to the obstructed site, and then pass a deflated balloon catheter over the wire. When the balloon is inflated, it forces the passageway open again. Sometimes a rigid tube called a stent is placed in the vessel to help hold it open, letting the blood flow freely to replenish the oxygen-starved cells downstream. Staying flexible under pressure is a tough job for arteries. The fluid they pump is composed of substances that can get sticky and clog them. And your typical healthy heart beats about 70 times a minute, and at least 2.5 billion times during an average lifetime. That may sound like an insurmountable amount of pressure, but don't worry. Your arteries are well suited for the challenge.
Thank you so much, Joel. Just a moment, I'll just share my PPT again. Right. So I think it was slightly a big video, but am I audible, Joel?
Yes, you are.
Yes. So it was slightly a big video, but it actually must have given you a clarity that what is happening inside and why the blood pressure is rising. Okay. Now that is your basic, that happens on a general basis. Now there is one more mechanism which may lead to high blood pressure if the conditions are very persistent, right? So we have a lot of, our body is very intelligent. We have a lot of backup mechanisms of all the problems, right? So there is one kind of backup mechanism. So whenever as your body starts feeling that, okay, there is a loss of like sodium, or there is a slightly low blood pressure, there is a kind of low blood pressure happening in your body. So body has a mechanism to again increase your blood pressure. Okay, why I'm slightly trying to make you understand this, because this will help you to understand that why these ACE2 inhibitors are used to reduce your blood pressure. Okay. So this happens like on very temporary basis, but if this condition becomes persistent, then it will lead to a lot of high blood pressure issues again. Okay, so one of the mechanism is, this is called as RAS mechanism, that is your renin-angiotensin system. Okay. Now, how it happens? So first of all, what happens? Your liver makes a protein called as angiotensinogen. Okay, it's a protein called as angiotensinogen. So as soon as the body detects, okay, there is some blood pressure is on the lower side, your liver produces a protein called angiotensinogen, and your kidney produces a enzyme called renin. Okay. So when this renin works on your angiotensinogen, it converts it into angiotensin 1. Okay, it converts it into angiotensin 1, and it doesn't have a very proper function and all. Okay, it's like, you can understand it, it is an inactive form, right? So when this angiotensin 1 reaches to your kidneys, your lungs and all, there what happens, there is another enzyme called as angiotensin converting enzyme. This is called as ACE, ACE, right? Angiotensin converting enzyme. So in presence of this, angiotensin 1 gets converted to angiotensin 2. Okay, it gets converted to angiotensin 2, and this angiotensin 2 is actually responsible for increasing your blood pressure. So how it does? It does it in 2 to 3 phases. First of all, the property of this angiotensin 2 is actually vasoconstriction. That means it squeezes your blood vessels. So when it squeezes your blood vessels, automatically your blood pressure increases. Secondly, it increases the sensation of thirst and salt intake in your brain. So your body starts feeling that, okay, I have to increase my salt intake, or I have to drink good amount of water. Third thing, what it does, it increases the production of aldosterone. Aldosterone, okay. What this aldosterone does, it retains back the sodium. And as I've already explained, when your body is retaining back the sodium, what it does, it increases your fluid retention. In return, that fluid retention increases your blood volume, and ultimately it increases your blood pressure also. Okay, so that way, these are the 3 mechanisms how this angiotensin 2 increases your blood pressure. Okay, along with that, definitely your angiotensin 2 also affects your brain, where it increases the secretion of a content called as vasopressin. Vasopressin is basically anti-diuretic. That means it holds back the urine. It doesn't makes the urine free flow, right? It is anti-diuretic. Diuretic increases the urine frequency, wherein anti-diuretic stops the urine frequency. So what happens again when you are having an anti-diuretic effect, all your sodium and everything is getting retained back, which is further leading to your blood pressure. Okay. This gets affected if your body has low sodium, or your nervous system is having some issues, or it gets affected due to hormones like your estrogen, your thyroid and all. But imagine if this condition continues, so what will happen? There will be a continuous increase in your blood pressure. That's why you must have seen doctors giving ACE inhibitors. ACE inhibitors, what it does? If you're giving ACE inhibitors, it will not let angiotensin 1 convert to angiotensin 2, and that way the blood pressure can come under control, right? So that way you have to be you must have got an understanding that what is happening and what these medications are actually doing. Okay, now moving on to the next slide, we'll understand that what are the symptoms of your high blood pressure. Okay, so your symptoms are, see, as I said, that when you're having a high blood pressure, most of the time the person it goes undetected because it doesn't have a very specific symptoms. Why? Because a headache anyway you get on a general basis, tiredness you anyway feel on a general basis. You will think, okay, maybe I have not gotten a sleep and that's why I'm feeling a fatigue and tiredness, right? Blurred vision, maybe you'll feel okay, I must have used a phone a lot, maybe that is the reason, or my eyesight has affected. But none of these symptoms make our mind goes towards that, yes, my blood pressure can also go on the higher side, right? So what are the symptoms? You will get a severe headache, and that headache will be a kind of pulsating headache. Okay, you will feel a lot of chest pain because your heart is working hard to push the blood into the arteries. So that's why you'll feel a lot of chest pain, because the surrounding muscles are also getting affected. Okay, you'll feel a lot of dizziness, because definitely if the blood circulation is not happening properly and it is not reaching to your brain also, that may lead to some dizziness. Okay, shortness of breath you'll be able to feel because of the overworked heart. You'll feel a lot of fatigue and weakness. You may see some blurred vision also, because blurred vision, why it is happening? Because your retinal blood vessels are also getting affected because of the high blood pressure. You will see a regular heartbeat, and along with that, in few cases, you may be able to see some blood in your urine as well. So these are basically your signs and symptoms of your high blood pressure. Okay, and as I said, that high blood pressure is a very threatening condition, and it actually affects your major organs, and it's a very deadly condition. That's why it is a silent killer. But I think most of us always neglect the blood pressure, and we don't put that extra effort that how we can maintain our blood pressure in normal ranges, how we should not go for higher dosage of medications, right? So what are the complications of your high blood pressure? First of all, it majorly affects your circulatory system, that is your heart, okay, because it is directly connected, okay. And the longer it goes undiagnosed, the severe effects you'll be able to see on your heart. So what happens when your blood is putting a lot of pressure on the walls of your artery? Gradually it starts damaging your arterial walls, as you have seen in the video also, and gradually there happens a plaque formation, and because of that plaque there is again the narrowing of the blood vessels happen. The nutrition is not able to reach properly to the proper organs, which may lead to your heart attack also, especially if that plaque formation or the narrowing of the blood vessels is happening in your coronary arteries, which supplies blood to the heart, okay. And it can further lead to a lot of irregular heartbeats, which may further lead to your myocardial infarction, where the contraction and the relaxation of your heart muscles are getting affected because the conduction of electrical impulses are not happening. So heart attack, your myocardial infarction can be two of the major causes of your heart related problems, okay. The next major organ that it affects is your brain, that is your nervous system. And again, the same thing applies there also. If the blood vessels of your brain or the oxygen or the nutrition of the blood vessels are not reaching properly to your nervous system, it may lead to strokes, it may lead to convulsions, it may lead to seizures, it may lead to severe headaches, right? And it may lead to a lot of memory related problems also, right? Because the damage is happening, the brain cells are not able to get proper nourishment, so automatically it will lead to dementia, Alzheimer's, and all the other degenerative diseases, okay. The next major organ that it affects is your eyes, especially your retina, okay, because the blood vessels of your retina are getting affected, which will lead to your blurred vision and may lead to your loss of vision as well, okay. Next is your skeletal system, your overall skeletal system, because a high blood pressure, because the blood is putting a lot of pressure on your kidneys, which is leading to increased loss of calcium through kidneys, right? So that again may lead to a weaker bones and a weaker skeletal system, okay. The next is your urinary system. If the blood pressure continues, the complication can lead to a chronic renal failure, because the blood vessels which are supplying the kidney, which are supplying the whole urinary system, that itself are getting damaged, okay. So that way, these are the main complications. You can see blood pressure, which is a very common problem, can lead to, so you must have come across people that sudden heart problem came, or sudden kidney failures related issues, or sudden maybe a stroke or something like that. The underlying cause, major cause, can be your high blood pressure, a persistent high blood pressure, which must have led to all these complications, okay. Now, what can be done about it? What is our role in it, right? So prevention and management of your hypertension is one of the major things that can be done by yourself, right? If it is for you, do it for yourself. If it is for your friends and family, make them educate about how you can prevent and manage your diet and lifestyle to get so that you don't reach that complicated situation of your heart problem or a stroke problem, okay. Diet and lifestyle plays a very, very important role in the management of your hypertension, okay. So first of all, eat a heart healthy diet and include a lot of potassium and your fiber, okay. What are potassium rich foods? Like your banana, your potato, your tomato, all your fruits are actually potassium rich, okay. Your curd, your sweet potato, your avocado, these are all potassium rich food. Now you know that why potassium is important, because if you're having a potassium rich food, it leads to more filtration of sodium through urine. So when the sodium is flowing more out of urine, so there is no fluid retention and your blood pressure will be well maintained. Okay. Second, hydration, because when you're dehydrated also, what happens, it thickens your blood, and again a thick blood again puts an extra pressure on the arterial wall. So hydration again is very, very important, so that there is a proper balance of fluid in your blood. Okay. Third is your exercise, because exercise is definitely going to make your heart healthier. The contraction and relaxation process will be much more healthier if you are into a regular exercise, especially if you are already having blood pressure. 150 minutes of exercise is recommended on a weekly basis. Okay. So at least you should be able to do that. Okay. Quit smoking, because now we understand that if you are, that's why they say that smoking is much more worse for blood pressure and heart related problem than the alcohol intake, because it completely, the nicotine and the other chemicals completely damages your blood vessels. Okay. So quit smoking, that is one of the most important step that you can take to in the prevention and management journey of your blood pressure. Limit your alcohol. Again, excess alcohol has to be reduced, because that again has a very negative impact on your overall heart health. Limit salt intake. At least like 2.3 gram, 1.5 to 2.3 gram is the maximum intake. In fact, in a pinch of salt also, it's almost 1000 milligram. So imagine if you calculate your whole day's salt intake, it definitely must be reaching to 5 to 6 grams, right? Because you have already a back of mind, you have a subconscious thing. Okay, I mean, anyway, I'm taking medication, right? So it will keep it under control. But salt, reducing the salt intake is one of the major steps that can be taken to take care of your blood pressure conditions. Along with that, definitely manage your stress and sleep, because you're now aware that how your stress and sleep can impact your blood pressure because of the cortisol's vasoconstriction effect. Okay. Maintain a healthy weight, because again, if you're not at a healthy weight, again your heart has to pump harder and harder to supply the blood to the extra weight also. Okay. It is said that every kg you're losing, it reduces 1 mmHg of your blood pressure. So 1 kg and you're able to reduce 1 mmHg of your blood pressure. Okay. And cut back on caffeine, because I think the clarity is not that much, but definitely caffeine has a role, because it again has a vasoconstriction effect. So it also has a role in increasing your blood pressure. It's not that if you're taking 2 cups of coffee and your blood pressure will always be on the higher side. If you're taking 4 to 5 cups of coffee, then definitely it is going to affect your blood pressure in long run. Okay. Now, when we are talking about nutrition, the most important thing that can be done is follow a DASH diet. Okay. So this DASH diet was actually introduced to take care or manage your blood pressure only. DASH stands for DASH, stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. Stop hypertension, I'm not very convinced with that, but at least prevent, manage, or that word will be much more better. But yes, a DASH diet is one of the very very known to diets that has been followed for your control of your blood pressure. Okay. This diet, what is the major features of this diet? This diet is very rich in your fruits, vegetables, salads, whole grains, and your nuts and seeds, that is your good fats. Okay. And it also, if you're following this diet, definitely it also helps to reduce your cancers, your heart disease, your diabetes. It may help you with your weight loss also. So overall, it is actually giving you a holistic approach, not only to control your blood pressure, but also your other metabolic disorders. Okay. It is basically most, because intake of fruits, vegetables is on the higher side. So you can understand it is more based, more of a plant-based diet that we are trying to follow. Okay. So in the next slide, you will see that what are the servings that is suggested in this DASH diet. So when they say that whole grains, it has to be only 6 to 8 servings per day. Servings, again, you have to understand it varies from item to item. Like if it is a chapati, it should be a palm shaped chapati. If it is a rice, then it should be a half bowl rice. So that is called as your 1 serving. Okay. So when we are talking about cereals or whole grains, it should be only 6 to 8 servings per day. Vegetables intake is very much on the higher side, at least 5 servings per day. Again, your fruits also has to be taken 4 to 5 servings per day. Okay, your dairy product only 2 to 3 servings per day, and that also it should be on the low fat side. Okay, it cannot be a whole milk. Okay, all your protein item like your chicken, meat, fish, poultry, it can be 6 or fewer servings per day. Okay, and along with that, nuts and seeds, it can be 4 to 5 servings per week. Okay, fats and salts, again 2 to 3 servings. One serving will be almost like 1 teaspoon, 1 teaspoon, slightly more than that. And your sugar is only 5 or fewer servings throughout the week, right? So this is the way that you can plan your DASH diet. In this DASH diet, there is no specific food. Okay, you can take this food only or that food only. It is based on the servings. So automatically you will end up having a very balanced meal. Okay. Now, after that, we'll try to understand that what are the foods to be avoided and what are the foods that can be taken. So when we are talking about foods to eat in the blood pressure diet, then definitely it should be more of a high fiber and or more of a potassium rich diet. Okay, so those foods can be, like your berries, your avocados, your dark chocolate, your banana, your beetroots, your pomegranate, your garlics, right? Your yogurt, your oats, your olive oil. These are basically your healthy foods that can be taken if you want to manage your blood pressure diets. Along with that, what foods to be avoided? All kinds of packaged foods, because all kinds of packaged food, they in the backside you'll be able to see a lot of hidden salt item, lot of hidden sugar items will be there, right? So all kinds of packaged and canned foods and your frozen foods, that has to go out of your diet. All kinds of pickles and peppers has to go out of your diet. Not a very regular intake of all kinds of your Chinese foods, that has to go out of your diet. Okay, your alcohol, your whole milk, your sweets, your table salt, all kinds of bakery products, because in your bakery products also there's a lot of hidden salt going in. So all that you should be avoiding. If you just follow what to eat, what not to eat also, along with taking care of your sleep, stress, supplements, exercise, I think you'll be able to manage your blood pressure in a much more better way. Okay, now let's understand that what are the nutrients that are important to control your hypertension. Okay, so first let me talk about one of the most important nutrient, that is your magnesium. Okay, so how does magnesium helps? Because see, basically magnesium during all your reactions, all your enzymatic reactions, because magnesium takes part in almost more than 300 enzymatic reactions. Okay, so during those enzymatic reactions, what it majorly does, it releases more of nitrous oxide. Okay, and this nitrous oxide, what is the most important feature of this nitrous oxide? It vasodilates. That means it relaxes your blood vessels, and we now are aware that relaxation of blood vessels will definitely helps in reducing the blood pressure. Okay, also it reduces your renin levels. Okay, so renin was the enzyme that was converting angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1, right? So if the renin is reduced, that conversion will get affected, and ultimately the RAS system will not be effective. Okay, also it reduces the vascular stiffness. That means it increases the flexibility of your blood vessels. So when the blood vessels are much more flexible, it will be able to take more pressure also, right? It will not become very resistant. So that again will help you with your blood pressure. And magnesium also helps to reduce different kind of inflammatory markers. That means it reduces your inflammation. Okay, second most important nutrient that we should be talking about is your potassium. Again, potassium also has a role in relaxing the blood vessels, and again a high potassium intake will always helps to make the sodium flow go more through the urine. When the sodium is passing more through the urine, automatically the backward fluid retention and all of that will not happen, and somewhere it will help you with your blood pressure management. Okay, but the people who are already on ACE inhibitors, they should be slightly careful not to increase their potassium intake unless and until they take a consent with the doctor, because they may end up having a condition called as hyperkalemia, that is high level of potassium in your blood, right? So that again puts a lot of negative impact on different systems. So people who are on ACE inhibitors, they have to slightly have a brief discussion with their doctor before they increase the potassium intake. Okay. Along with that, the folic acid is there. Folic acid also has a role in relaxing the blood vessels, as well as it also improves the blood flow. Dietary fiber, because it helps to reduce the cholesterol levels, it reduces the LDL. LDL is your low density lipoprotein, which basically gets stuck in those damaged blood vessels and helps in making that plaques. Okay, so that's why since it reduces the LDL, automatically the risk of plaque formation will be reduced, and somewhere indirectly it will help with your blood pressure as well. Okay, along with that, your coenzyme Q10. Now the people who are on statins, right? So the statins actually reduces the coenzyme Q10 levels in your, especially in your heart, right? So and coenzyme Q10, we are aware that basically it increases the cellular energy, and when we are talking about cellular energy, basically it increases the functionality of your heart cells also, right? And somewhere overall, since it is a very strong antioxidant also, it reduces the free radical damage happening in the blood vessels. So overall, coenzyme Q10 also increases the heart functionality, has an antioxidant effect, and improves the functions of your heart muscles, the health of the heart muscles. Okay. The next is your omega-3 fatty acid. Now, we have all been using the salmon omega, and we know it is heart friendly. How does omega-3 fatty acids help in your blood pressure? Basically, it inhibits the accumulation of your fats, because it is good fats, right? So it becomes carriers of those bad fats. Bad fats are your LDL. So what it does, if you have adequate amount of omega-3 fatty acids running in your blood, what it does, it attaches to your LDL and takes it to your liver, and then there it gets metabolized. Okay, so that way it helps, and also it has a very important role in improvising on your blood circulation. It also reduces your inflammation, and it has a role in increasing the elasticity of your blood vessels. Again, garlic, again, we are all aware garlic itself comes by the name garlic heart care. So garlic has a special content called as allicin. Okay, allicin, again, what it does, it increases your nitrous oxide production, and now we know that nitrous oxide has a role in relaxing the blood vessel, in dilating the blood vessel, right? It also reduces the arterial stiffness, and it reduces the inflammation. So that way the garlic again helps you to manage your blood pressure. And vitamin C, see, the right now the vitamin C, it's not like very directly related, but vitamin C also has a diuretic effect. Okay, slight diuretic effect. So that again helps you to reduce your blood pressure, and it has a vasodilator effect and reduces your clot formation also, which can be one of the problems of the blockage of the blood vessels. Okay, so these are basically the essential nutrients which you should be considering while taking care of your blood pressure. Okay, again, all of it is difficult to take it from your diet, so definitely you can always take the help of the supplementation. So Nutralite has a huge range of supplementation which works on your blood pressure, which works on your overall heart health. So we have Nutralite Salmon Omega. You know now that why omega is important. 1 to 3 soft gels is the dosage, depending on how the condition. You can suggest accordingly. It comes with a goodness of 180 milligram of EPA and 120 milligram of DHA. EPA is much more a heart-friendly omega-3 fatty acid. Okay, DHA mainly works on your eyes and your brain. Combination definitely overall works on improving on your heart health. Okay. Garlic, again, again, because of the presence of allicin, it definitely has a blood pressure lowering effect. It also has an effect on reducing your triglycerides. Again, triglycerides are your flowing cholesterol in your blood, which may again impact or clog your arteries, right? So garlic again has a blood pressure lowering effect because of the presence of allicin. It is almost 6 milligram of your allicin. Okay. Third is a coenzyme Q10. Garlic, the dosage is 2 tablets at once, any time of the day with meal. Okay. The next is your coenzyme Q10, which comes with the goodness of citrus, bioflavonoids, phytonutrients also. Coenzyme Q10, now we are aware that how it impacts your blood pressure and how it improvises on the functionality of your heart. The dosage is 4 per day. You can take it 2 per day, 3 per day, or 4 per day also, but you have to slightly be careful with this because it may, especially the people who are on blood thinners, it may interfere with the effect of your blood thinners. So try not to give it along with the blood thinners. That is again very important. Vitamin C Cherry Plus for your overall blood circulation, for your overall blood vessels health, for your overall immunity, for your reduction of your inflammation, all of that, but it is not a very direct supplementation for your blood pressure. Okay. Now the next are your all plant protein powder, because definitely all your blood vessels, all your heart are your muscles only, are made up of cells and tissues only, right? So if you're not giving adequate amount of protein, then definitely it will affect the strength of the blood vessels. It will affect the strength of your heart. And also if you're taking protein, it will definitely impact a healthy weight also, which is one of the major things which you can work on while on taking care of your blood pressure. Okay, the dosage is 1 to 3 scoops per day, comes with a goodness of 9 essential amino acid, has a PIDCA score of 1, which is the maximum digestibility score, and it is neutral in taste. So that is the best part. You need not to wait to mix it in a fluid or mix it in a milk. You can just mix it in your soups, you can mix it in your curries, you can mix it in your batters, you can mix it in your attas, and that way you can take. Okay, daily comes with a goodness of 13 vitamins and 11 minerals and the phytonutrients benefits. So there are a lot of nutrients which affects your heart health, like your folic acid is there, your selenium is there, and so many other nutrients are there. So if you're taking a daily, overall the nutritional gap will also get fulfilled, and you will get all those micronutrients also which are heart friendly. Okay. Your CalMag D is mainly because of the presence of magnesium, and definitely calcium also has an impact on the contraction and relaxation of your muscles, right? So calcium has a role in your heart functionality also. So overall, a person who is 40 plus may be at a risk of getting a high blood pressure. You can definitely add a CalMag D. It will give a benefit not only for the bone health but also for your heart health also. Ashwagandha I've just added because if you know that, okay, the blood pressure is happening because of high stress levels or the sleep is getting affected, then definitely that is the time when you should be adding ashwagandha, because it has a role to reduce your cortisol levels. It has a role in blocking your stress pathways, and that way it will help you to manage your healthy blood pressure levels. Okay, so this was all from my side. Now over to you, Joel. We can take some questions. Hopefully I've covered all the points.
Yes, thank you so much, Sapna. So everyone, if you have any questions, please do put them on the chat and we would address them. How does low BP happen?
See, low BP again is related to your fluid thing only. If you are having very low sodium, that affects your low BP. There are a lot of hormones that affects your low BP. So all of that. There's no specific reason. It's all internal reactions of your hormones, of your fluid balance, of all your mineral balance. Because of that, it happens.
Which is more serious, low BP or high BP?
See, I'll not say, but generally I say that high BP has much more dangerous post effects.
Does elongated high sugar affect blood pressure?
Yes, definitely, because when you are having a high blood sugar, it definitely affects the viscosity of your blood. When your viscosity, that means the thickness of the blood. So if you have a high viscous blood flowing in the arteries, definitely it will put more pressure. Okay, and that way it definitely increases your blood pressure.
Yeah. So I see that there are some personal questions, people saying that they're suffering from something and want to know which supplements can help. For that, I would request you to get in touch with one of our consultants, because that they will need a lot more details, and also get to understand any medication that you're taking in. So this being a general platform, we'll just take up the general questions. Any personalized questions, please do get in touch with them personally. Why don't we recommend ginseng to high BP person?
See, ginseng itself increases the blood, increases the blood flow, right? And if the blood flowing in the arteries are already putting a lot of pressure, and in that, if we increase the blood, the blood circulation, then definitely it may impact in a negative way. So that's why preferably we say that ginseng not to be suggested in high blood pressure people.
Okay. Can people with kidney issues consume daily?
Yes, they can, because the people with kidney issues, they just need to take care that they should not be having potassium. None of our supplements are having sodium or potassium. So they can safely take, no problems.
Okay.
But again, anything related to kidney, taking a consent of the doctor is always better.
Okay. Can high BP or low BP be completely eradicated?
See, once it is setting in, once it sets in, then definitely you can just prevent and manage. Like imagine you're already in stage 1 hypertension. That is the time when you cannot completely go back. Okay. And that's why there are people who completely stop their medication. Ki now since 6 months my blood pressure is maintained, let me stop. So please don't do that, because you never know what is happening inside, right? So don't stop your medication without the consent of your doctor. It cannot be completely eradicated, but if it is related to your stress, if it is related to your diet, and you're able to manage your diet and stress, then definitely it can be taken care. But if it is because of any internal mechanism, because maybe of your RAS system, or because of all your other problems that is happening, then it cannot be completely eradicated. You can just delay the consequences.
Okay. For people who have high BP and is a diabetic patient, do all your recommendations stay the same?
Yes, definitely. Because for a diabetic person also, we'll suggest a protein daily, omega, garlic, maybe a madhunashni, and maybe ashwagandha. So that can be the combination, because it will work together in synergy in both the problems.
Okay.
Because if you see, all your garlic, all your everything also has an impact on your insulin, right? It also has an impact on your insulin, right? So definitely can be taken together.
Okay. So we'll take up a couple of more questions since we're out of time. How far is the effect of blood pressure on thyroid?
See, because of thyroid, the blood pressure may happen, but it's not like the other way around. Because of thyroid, the blood pressure may get impacted, but there is no nothing like blood pressure will impact thyroid. So the person who is having a thyroid condition may have a high blood pressure or a blood pressure related condition.
Okay. Okay. For the last question, can blood pressure issues be sorted out with only supplements and lifestyle changes without the medication, or should medication also be included?
See, as I said, that depends that what has been the reason. Like imagine you are obese, your eating habits are bad, and that's why the blood pressure has set in, right? So if you're taking care of your weight, if you're taking care of your food intake and everything, your lifestyle, your stress and everything, then maybe you need not to take a medication. if it is your diet and lifestyle related. But if there is any kind of underlying medical condition already, like imagine you have a liver problem, you have a thyroid problem, you have something which is making the blood pressure go high, then definitely you should be taking medication. That is the time when you cannot stop the medication.
Okay, so with that, we come to an end of today's event. So first of all, Sapna, I would like to thank you for your time, and the whole presentation was very well delivered. In fact, there are a lot of good comments here on how they all thoroughly understood your topic. So thank you so much for that. And I would also like to thank all the participants here from the chat box. It's really visible that you all were really engaged. So thank you all for joining us today. We will